Okay, hello again. Okay, so today we're still reading The Vein of Gold, A Journey to Your Creative Heart by Julia Cameron. I hope that's showing up okay. And we're starting on page 25. Your mode of transportation, walking. One of the most powerful tools for spiritual renewal is a simple and overlooked one. It is so simple and so commonplace that people mistake it for metaphor. We say, I'm walking my way back into my creativity, but we do not realize that this is a literal statement. Walking is the most powerful creative tool that I know. Although it has fallen into disuse in our hurried times, it may be the most powerful spiritual practice known to man. Because for the purpose of this book, creativity and spirituality and are indistinguishable. We will walk for inspiration and integration. A creative life is a process, and that process is digestion. We speak of food for thought, but seldom realize that as artists, we need thought for food. Walking with its constant inflow of new images gives us new thoughts that nourish us. It replenishes our overtapped creative well and gives us a sense of wellness. Yes, art is an interior process, but it is also an exterior one. We are seeking images and we see them both through our physical eyes and our mind's eye. All too often, in the name of our art, we lock ourselves away from new experiences and shut ourselves off from both sight and insight. Hold up working, we wonder what happened to our imagination since the play. Walking opens us up. It feeds us image by image. It spoons up for us a broth or soup of soul food, which sustains us as we do the work necessary to shape and reshape our lives. In other words, we can walk our way out of problem and into solution. If I'm snagged on a storyline, I walk it out. If I'm stymied about what to work on next, I walk until it comes to me. When I am tangled into the plot lines of my work or my life, I take a walk and allow the walk to sort things out. Creativity is a spiritual process, one in which we speak of inspiration. When we talk about inspiration, we are talking about drawing breath. Walking makes our breathing rhythmic and repetitive. As our breath steadies and soars, so does our thought. Great spiritual traditions know this. English pilgrims traveled by foot to Canterbury. Muslims braved the trackless Sahara to visit Mecca. Across cultures and continents, walking is an ancient and literal form of for pursuing a spiritual path. Druids and Wiccans quest by walking. Tibetans make circular pilgrimages around Kailash, the sacred mountain that is Shiva's birthplace. The Tibetan word for human is a groba, a goer, one who goes on migrations. Native Americans walk for vision quests. Jesus the Nazarene did the same thing, venturing into the desert for 40 days and 40 nights to glimpse and prepare for what his future held. All of us make a pilgrimage whenever we set ourselves outward, bound for inner voyaging. Walking is the simplest way to do this. John Muir, explorer, conservationist, and nature mystic, once wrote ruefully, I only went out for a walk, and finally concluded to stay out till sundown, for going out I found was really going in. Theologians speak of the ground of being as a synonym for God. I believe that the ground is the being of God, and it speaks to our souls through our souls. Do not think I am kidding here. Please do not imagine that puns are merely facile. Several years ago, I went through a spiritual passage during which I saw that the earth was a living being, which stored all of our collective experiences, every footfall and whisper, every passion, hope, heartbreak, dream that any of us had ever embodied. To learn of these things, we had only to listen carefully enough to the earth. Through it, our ancestors spoke to us. I remember telling my friends to leave me alone and let me just sit out under my apple tree to listen and learn. I remember telling them that if they wanted to spend time with me just then, we could walk the land and talk. My friends became concerned for my sanity, but I felt I was watching and listening to something very important. In the time since this passage, I have let my fingers do some walking as well. I have many books now, which are underlined and scribbled in. I found my insights recorded by others as their own spiritual passages or parts of their spiritual tradition. I saw that. My margins exclaim or yes. I know I now know that I'm gonna go back. Hold on, that didn't quite make sense to me. In the time since this passage, I have let my fingers do some walking as well. I have many books now which are underlined and scribbled in. I found my insights recorded by others as their own spiritual passages or part of their spiritual tradition. I saw that, my margins exclaim, or yes. I now know that I am far from alone in believing that walking with our souls is really walking with our souls. Oh, so like soul, like the bottom of your shoe, and then soul, like your spirit. I like that. Our internal horizons stretch with our external ones. We walk into expanded possibility. If you can bear it, the soles of our feet lead us to the feet of our souls. Cultural ecologist Joan Halifax writes, people have traveled over this earth with a heart of inquiry for millennia. They have sung through the land as a living being, offered themselves, their steps, their voices, and prayers as acts of purification that open them to an experience of connectedness. In this masterful book, Songlines, the mystic travel writer Bruce Chatwin reminds us in Islam, and especially among the Sufi orders, siyahat or errands, the action of rhythm of walking was used as a technique for dissolving the attachments of the world and allowing men to lose themselves in God. The English poets were and probably remain great walkers. They were also mystics and intersection of the two paths in no accident. It is no coincidence that many poets are both mystics and walkers. It is no coincidence that poetry is divided into feet, and we speak of feet as comprising poetic meter. Meter is the gate of a poem. The gate of a poem is often the gate we use to enter spiritual realms. Great poets like Blake and Rumi and Roethke walk us through the gate or veil that separates us from knowing our spiritual power. When we are tapped into this power, and walking is a direct way to do this. Our creativity expands far beyond what we may think of as our known ceiling. This has been true for artists throughout the ages. Oh, thanks for being here and you're welcome. In this book, Conversations on Dante Osip Mandelstam explains the Inferno and especially the Purgatorio glorify the human gait, the measure and rhythm of walking, the foot and its shape. The step linked to the breathing and saturated with thought. This Dante understands as the beginning of prosody. But you do not have to be a poet to understand walking. Walking by its rhythmic nature makes all of us poets. We see the flash of a bluebird, the jackhammer socks out of rhythm we take on as our own jive. Life sings along our circuitry as we invite it in by venturing out into it. Chatwin reminds us that the Greek word melos means limb, hence melody. When Walt Whitman sang the body, oh goodness, so sorry. When Walt Whitman sang "The Body Electric," it was the planetary body, the planetary song, which had begun to sing through his body. Although we have lost touch with our capacity to do so, we too can experience the same mystical connection. Even 1 month of walking will convince you that this is so. As much as anything else, walking is an exercise in heightened listening. As we walk, we awaken our neural pathways and make them more sensitive. This is what sound healer Don Campbell refers to as an acute sensing in an awakened, powerful internal space. All things of revelations follow, yet we do not need to leave our environments to experience the benefits of walking. When I am in an extremely intense urban environment, say Midtown Manhattan, I will take my daily walk in my Walkman using a tape like Tim Weider's Timeless. Weider spends yearly time in Australia, and the music shows it, moving past urban noise, pollution, and into the timeless realm where eternal questions can be raised, and if not resolved, at least examined. With the expansive and effervescent tape unspooling in my ears, I will thread my way past construction sites and urban bliss, taking it in, but also seeing something beyond it. In other words, walking is a form of meditation. When we are too heady, too full of chatter and clatter of our stress-filled lives, our spiritual energy returns to us through our feet. We walk on the ground and we ground ourselves by walking. Zen master Dogen called this the walking of the self. In Britain Druid's walk the old trunk's pathways that crisscross the land, called ley lines. These pathways, what the Chinese geomancers would call dragon lines, are energy routes or currents. Viewed physically, they resemble luminous ribbons or serpents of light. Seekers walking the energy lines experience a realignment in their own energies. If we will allow it, the physical world is a great spiritual teacher. But Julia, I don't have time for walking. You may be thinking, my life doesn't move at that pace. Such resistance is normal. Philip Carr Gom, who is currently chief of the Order of Bards, Ovates, and Druids, explains the technique. Central to the idea of Druidry is the idea that we should listen to the land, that it can speak to us and guide us if we are able to open ourselves to it. Walking allows us to explore such multisensory guidance from the physical world. As a culture, we have confused velocity with the accomplishment. We run ourselves ragged, convinced that if we just do more and go faster, we will succeed. We often lose the pulse of our own lives. We can find it again by walking. Very often, walking our own neighborhoods or countryside, we can encounter and recognize places and routes which feel good to us. Sometimes a little exploration will reveal that we are walking the local ley lines. Properly named or not, such places, walked in a spirit of openness, yield tremendous spiritual clarity. When I lived in Los Angeles, I always took my problems to a particular road to sort them out. There, on a ridge inland from Malibu, and a little to the north of it, I always experienced greater calm and heightened sense of perspective. Of course you did, I was told years later. That's where the ley lines are, and all the Native Americans' sacred sites were. In Britain, the ley lines are characterized and identified by the spiritual sites located along their lengths and particularly at their intersections. There you will find a Christian shrine built upon a pagan shrine, built upon a paleo paleolithic shrine. Through the Through the eons, people have sensed the rightness of certain locales for spiritual purposes. Even in a city overlaid by several hundred years of commerce, such sites are discernible. Walking such sites, walking with our spiritual sites in place as well, is what Kargam refers to as listening to the ancestral voices that speak through landscape. City dwellers may wish to walk point to point, stopping in into a church or synagogue at intervals en route. In Songwines, Chatwin details the Aboriginals' beliefs. The ancestors sang the world into existence. Each totemic ancestor, while traveling through the country, was thought to have scattered a trail of words and musical notes along the lines of his footprints. The trail of music is both what we hear and what we make as we walk. Like the ancestors before us, we name our experience as we walk. We name both our internal and external landscape. We have an experience of resonance, of sounding out our lives in relation to the physical world. Hawaiians speak of each of their islands as having a separate tone. My own experience is that each of them has a different vibration, like the after sound when you have tapped a drum head. All land has a tone to which we can respond, a note by which we can orient ourselves, like finding our place on a musical scale. In other words, the land has its own song, and you will hear it as you walk. Not only that, by learning to hear the land song, you will recognize your own life song and learn what creates harmony and disordinance for you. Task: walk daily. 20 minutes is enough. You must just want to get off the transit system one stop early. You may just want to get off the transit system one stop early or walk one stop before you get onto it at night. Your daily walk can be a part of your lunch hour, the way you start or unwind from your day. When you do it and how you do it, it matters less than that you do it. Treadmills and Stairmasters provide exercise, but they do not provide an image flow. Consider them a last resort. Task: walk an hour long walk weekly. Use this longer walk to explore territory that is either new or very interesting to you. You may wish to drive to the country walk there. If you live in the country, you may wish to go to the city and walk there. The idea is to stretch both your legs and your territory. You are using this walk to fulfill your image bank because art is an image using system, and you will be drawing heavily on your image bank in the weeks to come. Task: walk prayerfully. At least once a week, on one of your daily walks, use the time to exercise your gratitude. Consciously list and vocalize your gratitude for everything about your life that you enjoy. At first, this will require real spiritual exertion and may feel quite difficult. Also, saccharine. What you are actually doing is gaining altitude so that you see your life from a higher perspective, where you are able to recognize many more choices. This practice creates a dramatic shift in consciousness and often in mood. As the mystic Meister Eckhart noted, if the only prayer you say in your whole life is thank you, that would suffice. Hmm. Okay, so that's the end of that section. Um, and I wanted to go ahead and read the quotes that are on the side. Oh, I'm going to try to read them. My leg kind of fell asleep. I need to find a little bit of a better setup. Um, so here we go. Earth with her thousand voices praises God. Samuel Taylor Coleridge. For you can look at things while talking or with the radio going full blast, but you can see only when the chatter stops. Frederick Frank. The secret of the receptive must be sought in stillness. Within stillness, there remains the potential for action. Zhao Zhongzhang. I butchered that a little. When they are in nature, people sense intuitively that the other kingdoms are living in harmony with universal law. In such an environment, it's easier for the heart to open, to become softer, and live in tune with the earth. Waboon, Sunbeer's medicine helper. It is the child that sees the primordial secret in nature, and it is the child of ourselves we return to. The child within us is simple and daring enough to live the secret. Lao Tzu. There are a couple of more of these quotes, but my leg is in a lot of pain from being asleep, and I'm trying to listen to my body more. So I'm going to say bye for now. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you next time.